Welcome to Legacy Blueprint, Planet Forward, the podcast where top thought leaders in law, finance, and wealth planning come together to guide your future. Hosted by distinguished estate planning attorney Mike Bascom, each episode highlights industry experts who bring clarity, innovation, and proven strategies to the table. Because building a legacy isn't a solo act, it's the result of a team of professionals working in harmony. Join us weekly as we showcase the leaders shaping tomorrow and give you the tools to plan with confidence today.
Welcome to Legacy Blueprint, Planet Forward. I'm your host, Mike Bascom, and we're thrilled to have Sarah Blankenship join us today. How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
Bet. Sarah has been in the financial service industry for over 10 years. She joined Wilcox Financial Group as a financial services professional and is now the COO, Chief Operating Officer. She has a huge part in the client experience and making sure everything gets processed correctly. Sarah's a graduate of State University of New York in Buffalo, psychology degree, and also has an MBA. She's a member of the Leadership House and president of the Taekwondo Student Association. She currently serves on the board of the American Businesswomen's Association, Western New York Charter Chapter, and can be frequently found competing on runs on the weekends for various charities. Her high level of integrity and dedication to what makes Wilcox Financial Group lucky to have her. She's a co-author on a #1 best-selling book, Money Bitch, No BS Guide for Smart Women Who Want to Own Their Financial Future. She holds Series 7 and 66 licenses and is also life insurance and health insurance registered. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah.
Thank you.
So before we talk about the elephant in the room, I picked a couple things out of your bio that I'd like to ask you about. The one that caught my attention was Taekwondo. What's your background there?
So Taekwondo was never really a career path. It was just something that my family's very involved in. My parents are both black belts. My brother and I are black belts. My uncle actually just got inducted into the Taekwondo Hall of Fame alongside Chuck Norris and some other names. And so it's just been a sport that we've always been involved in.
That's very interesting. My son happens to have gone through and become a black belt as well. Ended up winning a couple of competitions. Nothing like your family, but still, it's a fun little thing to have done. So you've had pretty interesting journey there, from psychology to MBA to financial services to COO. What sparked those transitions?
Sure. So, psychology was also never really a career for me. I did go to school for psychology. Originally, my plan was medicine, and then I worked in research for a little while and didn't love it. So ended up going and working for a global bank for a little while. And, science and numbers and math have always been my thing. So I think it was a smooth transition into finance for me. And I did my MBA while I was working at the bank. And then eventually met my now business partner, Nicole. And it's sort of been a windy road, but just like the Taekwondo, Taekwondo taught me discipline, grit, pushing through discomfort. I think going through the college courses and getting those degrees, gave me the information that I have today. And I think when it comes to health and wealth, they both go very hand in hand together. And I think that financial planning is a really perfect blend of strategy, behavioral psychology, purpose, and, making sure that people feel really confident in the decisions that they're making.
Awesome. So you're very involved in the operations of the business as well and the client experience. So in your view, what does a successful client relationship look like, and what systems have you designed to help foster that?
Sure. So I've been the COO since the beginning, and a lot of that came from, personality differences and utilizing our strengths and weaknesses with my partner and now our entire team. And so I'm very organized, structured, and so that just I just fell naturally into that. To me, client success means they feel empowered, they feel seen. We work with a ton of women business owners, women and their families, and so making sure that those women felt confident in asking financial questions, having a seat at the table. We're not just giving a budget, we're not just throwing a bunch of investment terms at people. We're digging into their lifestyle, their goals, what they actually want to accomplish, what's important to them, pausing if they need to, if life gets in the way, but then also giving the roadmap of what they need to do, and the tough love to have the confidence to follow that even when it doesn't feel comfortable.
Interesting. I know in your book, Money Bitch, it's fairly unapologetic in its tone and its mission. As a fellow author myself, I understand the importance of having a punchy title there. What motivated you to write it, and what are you seeing as the most common financial myth holding women back?
Sure. So we wrote Money Bitch because we were just really tired of women feeling like you had to have it all figured out before you started working with a financial planner. I always make the analogy of, you don't wait until you're in the best shape of your life to hire a personal trainer. You utilize that person to give you the tips and the tools and the accountability to get closer to your goals a little bit more every single day. And so that book, I would hope that somebody would read it and read the stories that we wrote about real clients that we had, names changed, of course, and say, that's me, or that's my sister, or that's my mother, that's somebody I know, or that could be me, and I would love to feel that way. So we really wanted to break down that barrier of financial planning is just for the wealthy, or just when I get that big sum of money. It's really about all those little things that you do every day that put you slightly closer to building more wealth, feeling more comfortable, having a better safety net, all of those things. I think the biggest myth that women have is that they're bad with money. And we're bad at everything until we give it a try. And so it's not that we're inherently bad at that, or that we can't get better at it. It's just, I think typically our industry has been dominated by men, and women have, it hasn't been that long where women have even had financial independence. It's hasn't been that long since women have been able to get their own credit card, get their own loans, their own mortgage. And so now, as being primary breadwinners in a lot of the cases, like, women haven't had the education passed down through the generations perhaps as much as men have. And so I think it's really important to get out of that mindset, and if you feel like you're bad with money, go get good at money.
I like it. So how'd you come up with the title?
Really, Nicole and I went out of town with another girlfriend, and we were just trying to come up with something punchy, like you said, something that would make you pick up the book off of the shelf, that it's not just another money book. And so at the time that we wrote it, I think, I don't know, you're gonna have to beat me out if I'm not allowed to say this, but Unfuck Yourself was a very popular book on the shelves, and The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And so, something with a little edge and something like that would just make it stand out a little bit more, make it a little bit more, I guess, empowering. I want it to be like, like you're owning this.
That makes sense. I mean, if you got great advice and no one reads it, then what's the point? So capturing attention is important.
Exactly.
Right? All right. You've often said certainty creates the conditions to take risks. Can you help unpack that a little bit for our listeners, especially in the context of financial planning for families?
Sure. So part of my role here is wealth protection and risk management. And so what that means is looking at people's insurances a lot of times. So looking at their life insurance or disability income insurance, on occasion long-term care insurance, but it really does play into everything. I think when you know your plan, know your numbers, you have confidence around the fact that you can make decisions and feel good about them, know that you have options, that when life throws that curveball at you, you can feel good about it. I realized when I looked back in my life that all of the times that were really bad in my life, a sick family member, a terrible relationship, a job that I hated. All of the decisions to make a change in my life were made very easy, knowing that I had options, knowing that I had a little money in the bank, knowing my numbers, my budget, and knowing that I had that safety net for myself. And some of that was circumstance, not all of it was that strategic. Sometimes I was too young to be that strategic about it, but it just so happened that because I had those savings that I was able to do those things quite a bit easier and then just worry about the emotional part. And so the more, life is stressful enough, sickness and all of those things are stressful enough, are emotional enough. And so if you can control that controllable and be able to make those decisions, you can have a lot more confidence around it. I also really like the phrase women with choices have louder voices. And I think women having confidence around their money is really important, can allow them to be able to leave domestic violence situations, be able to leave a job that they hate, be able to, deal with whatever's going on with their children. And so I think that that's really important.
I love it. Sometimes people come to you are going to be couples and they may have very different mindsets, different experiences, different expectations. What strategies do you use to help them get aligned?
Yeah, so I think number one is recognizing that, hey, that's pretty normal. Most couples are not exactly in alignment from day one on their goals, their beliefs. Nobody comes from the same background, exactly the same experiences. And so you're not failures as a couple if you don't see eye to eye on all those things. You're human, that's natural. I think we make it easier to facilitate those money conversations so that there's no good guy, there's no bad guy. There's just putting out like what is important to me, what's important to you, how do we prioritize those things, how do we come to a consensus on what we're going to work on first. And so we help people do that neutrally, no judgment, kind of that third party in the middle, a mediator, if you will. We try to listen. It's not about fixing the relationship. It doesn't necessarily even mean that it's broken. It's just, one of those little stepping stones. But we look at spend plans. We do a lot of digging into goals. We ask our clients to fill out their goals worksheets even separately, because what I really, really want might not be exactly what my partner really wants. And bringing that information to the table is really important. And so, we've had a lot of success from that. Some people were like, oh, my partner or my spouse handles all of that and they do a really good job, so I don't need to know about it. And then sometimes the other spouse might be like, well, it's been a lot of pressure on me to be responsible for the whole household success. It's nice to have somebody either back me up or make sure I'm not missing anything.
Yeah, it takes a lot of skill to be able to do that. So your psychology degree, I guess, comes in handy during some of those.
It sure does. It sure does. I was just telling somebody the other day that sometimes I feel like that comes in more than a business degree or, all these licenses that we've had to take exams for.
Yeah, not getting your therapist license on the side. You're good with.
Yeah. Hey, money is emotional. It's true.
It is very emotional for sure. You talk about wealth as a tool for freedom, not just accumulation. So when we think of freedom, what does that mean to you? How do you help clients define it for themselves?
Sure. So I think going back again, it means options. It means getting to do more of what you want with who you want when you want. It means choosing what you're saying yes to, but also really specifically choosing what you're saying no to, because money it's a finite amount of resources. Yeah, we can go get more of it, but there's a limit to that oftentimes. And so every time you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. So if you're saying yes to, I don't know, I don't want to hate on coffee, we'll hate on lunch. If you say yes to buying lunch out every day, you might be saying no to a bigger retirement savings. You might be saying no to a funded vacation. You might be saying no to a kitchen remodel faster. And so by getting more intentional and giving every dollar that you have a job, by taking a look at it, you're choosing to get to the things that are really important to you faster. And that can be really freeing. You can feel like I'm actually getting up and going to work and making these paychecks for a purpose and not just constantly scrambling.
I like it. I love it. One of the things that you talk about is long-term care, and I know sometimes families really avoid planning for that. There are, of course, emotional and financial risks, sometimes significant risks of ignoring that type of planning. So, how can our listeners begin to approach that conversation with their loved ones?
Sure. I think long-term care fears are twofold, right? So there's long-term care, the need for long-term care, right? So needing help with doing all the things that you and I did this morning, getting up, eating, brushing our teeth, going to the bathroom, taking a shower, needing help with those things, or having a cognitive impairment, not remembering stuff. I think the fear of recognizing that either I'm going to be in that situation one day or somebody I love is going to be in that situation one day, we don't want to talk about it, right? We want to avoid the pain of that conversation. And so oftentimes people wait until it's too late and then everything's on fire. And so that is not the way to do it. I know that those conversations are really uncomfortable, but it's so much easier if you can be proactive rather than reactive, not only from a stress and emotion standpoint, but also financially. It is so much financially easier to get all of your estate documents done and have them in place than it is to be reactive and file for guardianship and do everything after the fact, like tens of thousands of dollars more expensive. And so that can be really, really important. And then the second piece of it, I think perhaps a lot of people are afraid of talking about long-term care when it comes to financial planning because they think it either means loss of control. I have to put all my money in a trust and I'm not going to have access to it. Or they think it means long-term care insurance, which can be costly. It can be costly from a premium standpoint, but if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, it's also costly to not have that too. And it's not necessarily right for everybody, but it should be something like to at least bring up the conversation, explore it. Is this something that makes sense for us to have, to talk about, to do some legal planning around? But I think the most important part is really just having the conversations with yourself and your family members of what does it look like if something were to happen to you? What type of care would you want to have? What do you have prepared for yourself? Where are those documents? Who are those people? All of those things, because not having the conversations, then you end up in a scenario where you might be wondering the rest of your life, like, did I do the right thing? Is this what they would have wanted? And just not knowing what kind of resources that you have available.
I love that you've highlighted both the emotional cost and the financial cost. The longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. Nothing gets better with age. Unlike
Yeah.
when this is, you're planting a tree, you want to get it addressed earlier. Yeah. So you've been in the business long enough. You've had a front row seat to some great successes and also some, how do we politely say it, dismal failures, probably. Can you share with us maybe a real life example, anonymous, of course, of maybe how a solid plan has changed someone's trajectory or a family's trajectory?
Yeah. I just had a client a couple weeks ago and she shared with us, just how happy she was to have been working with us for the last couple of years. And when we first started working together, she was somebody who was looking for options. She was in an abusive relationship, was just working on getting out of it. A lot of times those come with a lot of debt. We see that a lot of with women in transition in general, men in transition, if we have a bad breakup or a divorce or something that we need to rebuild from, or lost our job, or left a job, trying to build a business, that can be a hard time to get out of debt, rebuild. A lot of times that comes with feelings of being defeated. And so we were able to get her out of that mindset, help pay down the debt, help rebuild some of the wealth. And then throughout the years, she met somebody new, started a new relationship, got married, had a baby. And so we got to meet her now husband. And we went from planning for an individual to planning for a family to planning for the next generation. And so she had shared with us just how grateful she was for the confidence, the team, the leading through each stage of the game, pivoting as life changed, understanding, hey, can't meet right now because I'm planning my dream wedding, and but we'll catch up with you after. And then protecting her family. She was so excited how high her credit score had gone. Just all of the things that come along with feeling really good about yourself as a person when you feel like you're finally in control of everything. And so we have that happen a lot, whether it's a young family moving through that, that's really exciting to see, or watching a business owner grow and become successful and open a second location and hire employees for the first time and launch a product and all of those things. It's really exciting. Or, just as exciting, watching somebody climb that mountain, get to that retirement, helping them safely get down and feel really good about spending their money, and hearing them say they're living life in Florida or, on their boat, whatever that is. So that's really exciting. I think all of those little things are life changing for people to know, hey, it's all going to be good. It's all going to work out.
Yeah, I agree with you. Numbers and tax rules and investment products and strategies, those are great. But when you see lives impacted, that's really where the joy is. That's where the rubber meets the road. So I'm glad you've had these kinds of experiences. All right. You have also been busy. You're on the board of American Women's Association, and you've worked as an educator. So let's talk about mentorship and community. How does that play into particularly women's financial empowerment?
Yeah, so I was on the board I'm actually not on the board of the American Business Women's Association anymore, but I was on there for 12 years. My business partner and I think have been involved in just about every group that's local here. And so being in a place of leadership is really exciting. One, I think anytime anybody who's looking to grow, meet new people, putting yourself in a place of leadership is really important. You get to control the conversation, and you get to meet new people because you have to reach out to them, and they have to come to you, and all of those things. So I think it's a really easy way to put yourself out there and just grow more as your own person too. So I think that's really important. Empowering women, if you're somebody who isn't confident in doing those things, if you aren't comfortable with public speaking, sometimes those groups can be really great places to fall and make those mistakes. I just joined a golf league, and I play Thursday night. So I just played last night, and I am terrible. But I've really never played before, and the women on that group just keep telling me over and over again that
Right.
it's okay. I remember when I was brand new, and here's a tip for you, and I'll help you. So even in a group like that, it's about lifting each other up. My crappy golf game doesn't make somebody else's golf game terrible, and it doesn't pull away from any of their success. And so I think recognizing that it is one of those all boats rise thing, right? If we're all better golfers, if we're all better at money, then we're all going to have bigger, better conversations. We can all help each other. And so I think that I think for a long time, women felt like they had to compete with each other. And I think that was in fact the case for a really long time, that there were only so many spaces for women in business, and that is no longer the case. But I still think that there's that generational thought process where maybe people feel like there isn't enough room for everybody at the top, but there very much is. And so that recognizing that and pulling all those people along with you and pulling them up. That's the complaint about the old boys club, right? So make
Mhm.
it the everybody's old boys club, right? Like it's about pulling everybody up with you. So if you have an opportunity for somebody or talking about people when they're not in the room, but it's a room of opportunity and sharing, like you got to know this person, they're awesome, their business is wonderful, and it's only going to make you a better person by elevating others.
I noticed the first chapter of your book was talking about don't be afraid to ask, right? So too
Yeah.
often, I think people don't know, so they get afraid to ask. And you also earlier mentioned division of responsibilities with you and your partner. You're the COO, she's the CEO. So as a COO, some of your unique abilities probably are being a great strategist and implementing and carrying that out. So I'm curious, what trends are you seeing that families in Georgia should be particularly worried about, maybe 2025 and beyond with regard to wealth management or risk management?
Sure. So yeah, my partner and I definitely divide and conquer. We joke that she's the wow and I'm the how. So when we wrote the book, she was like, "We're gonna write a book," and I was like, "Okay, but how are we gonna do that? What's it gonna be about? And who's gonna write it all?" And so like I like to know all the systems and everything, definitely. I think the next big wave coming down the pipeline is going to be what they're calling the big wealth transfer. And so that I'm seeing emails all the time, I'm seeing webinars in our industry, I'm seeing all kinds of conversations coming around the great wealth transfer. And for those who don't know, the great wealth transfer is over the next 30-ish years, 30 to 40 trillion dollars, trillion with a T,
Mhm.
is going to pass hands. And
Mhm.
so the baby boomer generation, will be passing on majority of it to millennials and then after that. And so I think that preparing those next generations for that wealth transfer will be really important because without proper education, a lot of that could be lost. It could be lost to taxes, it could be lost to mismanagement. And so I think that that is very important. And going back to those family conversations, a lot of older generations, it was more of an MO to like, we don't talk about money and don't worry about it. Dad handles it or it's none of your business. Like, and so it was very hush hush and quiet. And so you don't want that to be the reason why your hard-earned dollars don't go to the place that you wanted it to go because you didn't have the conversations. We all assume we have time. And I think it's what's that phrase, when you're making plans, God's laughing. And
Mhm.
so, sooner than later is important of educating, hey, this is what we have, this is what's going to look like, this is who you're going to call. And again, going back to women, it's really important that women get that seat at the table, have the confidence, have the people that they know that they can ask questions of, lean on for support, find a financial advisor that they're comfortable with, that they like, because women are set to inherit that wealth twice. And so there's a lot more risk there. There's also so much opportunity. And so, women will inherit hypothetically from their family, their spouse's family, and then women typically outlive their spouses. And so, then they'll inherit again. And the numbers are staggering. And again, we want that hard-earned dollars that we have to stay with us in our families and not necessarily be squandered by poor decisions or just inaction also. And then I think it's also going to be really important. I know a lot of times I have this conversation with people, and maybe it's somebody who's like, well, I'm not getting anything. My parents don't have anything to pass to me. It's still passing in general in our economy, and it's going to put, again, more women into places of power where decisions are being made in different ways. And so just knowing that that's happening is also really important.
I love that. Whether it's going to feel like lottery winnings or no lottery winnings, and you need to be prepared for it either way. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I love that empowering fact. All right. So you've seen Wilcox Financial grow since you were there. And anytime you build a business and any small business owner, there's always growing pains, that come with doing that. So I'm gonna get personal here. What's been your toughest obstacle in helping lead Wilcox Financial Group? How's it shaped the way that you deal with your team and your clients?
It's definitely been a long and windy road. As I said, Nicole and I have had our business, I think we're almost on 13 years, and we've had team members come and go. Growth isn't always easy. It's definitely not a straight line. For me, scaling
Mhm.
our team was hard. I'm conservative, like I am the how piece, like I said. So I get nervous. I'm better now. I used to get nervous when we are going to bring somebody on. Well, what are we going to do? And we're just going to give them all this access and all this responsibility. How are we going to know if they're doing it? And so during periods of rapid growth, it was hard and the systems broke and stuff that I worked really hard to put in place wasn't necessarily happening, or communication got messy. And so for me, it was really hard to like let go of that control of this like little thing that we had
Mhm.
built, and we're growing to this big thing. And so learning that about myself, that I know I don't like that, but I know that it needs to happen, and we can build such a bigger, better company and help more people if I can let go of some of that. So over the years, it didn't always look pretty, but I learned from a lot of my mistakes. Not that I'm not going to make any more in the future, but I've learned from a lot of my communication mistakes and accepting people asking for that help and help us come on and grow our business and help people build more wealth. And so that made me definitely a better leader, a better mentor, and a better, money coach to my clients too.
Well, being able to hire the right people, train them so you can replicate yourself, it's always tough for any small business owner. So thanks for sharing that with me. Now, I know that you're known for running charity races and giving back. So oftentimes clients want to build generosity into their financial legacy. So doing something that's both meaningful and sustainable. How do you assist clients in that?
I think it starts with asking really good questions. So what's important to you? What do you want life to look like when you're not here anymore? What do you want to be remembered for? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? And so digging into the hard hitting questions, what's most important to you, who's most important to you. And so depending on how that goes, building it into the plan. So, whether it's a gifting strategy or an insurance strategy or donor advised funds, or even just having it in your budget for some gifting, and making sure that that is part of the priority in there. And I think also getting people to the point where they feel comfortable knowing, okay, I can give those gifts or I can make those donations without hurting my family or myself, and making sure that they know that that's a possibility and this is what it looks like when we do that, and here's how it can help you and that charity, and making sure it's most efficient for all so it can really maximize what that gift looks like.
Thank you. I love that. We're kind of getting close to wrapping up here. And I know sometimes people get a little bit overwhelmed when they hear a lot of information. You gave a lot of really good information ideas here. So if someone's feeling a little bit overwhelmed and not quite sure where to start, maybe you could give us one small actionable step that someone could take this week that they could start to begin their financial clarity and confidence.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about money dates here, whether it's, money dates with your business partner, money dates with your actual partner, but have a money date with yourself. It sounds very simple, and it's because it is, but going back to like what is important to me, because I think that it's really hard sometimes. We live in this incredibly fast-paced world, this really incredibly fast-paced environment where we're always seeking more, achieving, multitasking, trying to get through Friday, June 6th, so that we can get to the weekend. We're worried
Mhm.
about right now, this hour, this meeting,
Mhm.
this day, this baseball game after here. that everybody's just worried about like getting through the day. But if you step back and you scale, you zoom out a little bit of your life and take a moment for yourself to put some pen to paper and say, like, what is it that I really want to achieve? What is it that's really important to me? Is it really important that my family and I go on vacation every year? Is it really important that I buy a house? Is it really important that my partner and I get on the same page, or we plan for our wedding, or we plan to have children, or make sure that we can retire early like we really wanted to? Whatever that thing is, because it's super different for every single person, for every family. And so putting that pen to paper and finding out what is important to me now, this summer, this year, next year in my life, and then looking at, are the actions that you are taking every single day, be it with your money or not with your money, just with your life, are they aligning with the things that you say are important to you? Because if they are not, then you're not going to get to those things. And if they are, then you're on track. But there's almost always something that you could improve upon, even if it's just 1% better. And so I think by giving yourself the permission to take that time and do that little exercise, you can see, yeah, I think I'm doing all right, but maybe there's some room for improvement, or wow, I'm way off and I'm not actually working towards any of the things that I say are important to me. And then is it time to hire somebody around some of that and ask for help and hire help and, get somebody to hold you accountable so that you can get to those goals more efficiently and more effectively, because that is where true happiness is going to lie. And so they say that money can't buy happiness, but I would disagree. I think being intentional with your money can buy at least a lot of joy.
And freedom, for sure. I know very high performance athletes, they have coaches that are paid for by the team, but they also have their own coaches on the side, the private coaches. So if you're a superstar athlete and you have your own coaches, how important is it to deal with something like this? So I love that you said, set an objective, what's your timeline, and then break it down. How are you measuring towards that? I love that. Very actionable. So money date. I'm going to steal that phrase. Money date.
All right.
I love it. Okay. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show. Just so people know, how can they find you and how can they get your book?
Sure. So our book is available on Amazon if you search Money Bitch, or myself or Nicole Overcamp or Sarah Blankenship on Amazon. It's also available on our website. We have actually two companies. So powerhousemoney.com, the book is available on there. Our financial planning firm, Wilcox Financial Group.com. I'm also available through there. And so we have our booking link right on there if somebody wants to schedule some time to chat. And we're also on all kinds of social media platforms as well. Wilcox is on Facebook. We have a private Money Bitch Facebook group. Powerhouse Money is on Instagram. So we're all over the place.
All right. Well, we'll put links to the book and the website down in the description. I'm assuming if someone brings a copy to you, you'd be happy to autograph it for them.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks again for your time, Sarah, and thanks to everyone for listening. We'll see you next time on Legacy Blueprint, Plan It Forward.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Sarah.
That concludes today's episode of Legacy Blueprint, Plan It Forward with Mike Bascom. Each week, we bring you insights from thought leaders across law, finance, and wealth planning. Because building your legacy is never a one-person journey. It takes a team of dedicated professionals working in harmony to turn vision into achievement. If you're ready to take the next step toward your secure future, visit bascomlaw.com or call 77028559493. And don't forget to tune in again next week as we highlight more experts and strategies to help you plan it forward with confidence.